Before we launch in, I just want a little programming note. For those of you who were paying attention, I had a heart attack at the beginning of the month, so I'm a little behind. I'm a little running slow. If I seem off at all, that's why. I've gotten a lot of great messages from you kids. I've got a lot of wonderful cards and things. I just want to thank everybody for it. It really meant a lot. It's going to mean things like I'm not going to hold up the book the entire show like I normally do, though, because my arms get tired. But I'm healing and everything's going great. So thank you all. Our guests this week, or month, I should say, we have Kel McDonald and Kate Ashwin, who are the editors of the book. They also did stories in the book. And so welcome to you both.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Excellent. So my first question, this is always the first question I ask. I love this question. Clearly, you guys have talent, you have skill. Of all the things that you could be doing in the world, why comics?
That's when I have the most control, and also I can do it myself.
Nice.
No, that's fair. I feel that.
It's kind of easier to be a self-starter with comics because, like, a lot of the other stuff it's more expensive to get it off the ground solo, like animation or a movie or something like that.
Oh,
and
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Kate,
no.
you got an answer for that? Any different?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's just a case of I really enjoy telling stories, and I also happen to enjoy drawing. So, you know, if you can merge the two, why wouldn't you? And it turns out comics let you do that. And I also read a lot of comics growing up, like I'm sure everyone here did, and yeah, it just made sense.
Oh, very good. Very good. Did either of you do you have any formal training? Did you go to school for drawing or writing?
I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, so I did major in comic books. Though it's technically my degree says sequential art because they realized no one would pay a ridiculous amount of money to major in comic books.
How long ago was that?
I graduated from SCAD in 2009.
Okay.
And a lot of folks in the first two Cautionary Fable books are like people I went to college with. So, like,
excellent.
That's how I found.
Was that one of the first classes from SCAD?
Could you repeat the question?
Was that one of the first classes from SCAD? I can't remember how long they've been.
No, SCAD has been around. I think because I had professors that graduated from SCAD, so
but not for the comics program, right? The comics program.
No, from the comics program. So
really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I think they graduated in 10 years before me. So
I didn't realize it had been going on that long. That's great. I thought it was only like a 10 or 12-year-old program at this point. But that's fantastic. Yeah. That's great. How about you, Kate? Do you have any formal training?
No. No, I have a degree in linguistics, which is absolutely nothing to do with this. But you know, that's just how life takes you sometimes. I just started drawing webcomics just before I started at university, and found I liked that more than the degree I was doing, so ended up pursuing that instead.
Nice. Kate, you said you read a lot of comics when you were a kid. What were you reading?
Oh gosh, Tintin, obviously. That's the standard around here. I read a lot of the sort of UK kids weekly comics, the Beano, and Buster was one I really liked. Those are a big thing here. Just sort of a weekly digest of fun kids comics, and I'd gobble up those and zip through them. So
nice. What made you start doing webcomics? What was there an impetus to get you to do that?
I honestly, I just saw that other people were doing it, and I was like, oh, I guess if anyone can do that, maybe I could. I gave it a go and scanned in some not very good drawings and put them on a free hosting site, and people actually started reading it, which was a very big shock. And it all just sort of blossomed out from there. I just thought I'd give it a go, and
Kate and
here
I
we
met
are.
on that free hosting site. We both
We
had our
did.
webcomic posted on the same place. So,
How long ago? Like,
well, I started Sorcery 101 in 2005, so it must have been in like 2006 or 2007.
yeah, my gosh.
And so, Kel, you were doing webcomics before you went to SCAD then, yeah? If
Yes.
I'm hearing this okay.
I started my webcomic my senior year of high school because I made a comic on my own and like printed it as a mini comic and saw how much it costs to do a print run of a mini comic and was like, well, that is not something I have money to do, and posting them online is free. So I switched to putting it online rather than trying to print minis.
So much easier to get people to look as well.
Just let's follow up on the mini part of it. What kind of print runs were you doing that scared you off?
Oh, it was like 50 copies, and so that was like a couple $100 for like, but for someone from in high school, like that's a big price tag. So
sure. But were you selling them or were you giving them away?
I tried to sell them and didn't have much luck, and then was like, I'll just put them online. So.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. So you said coming out of SCAD, a lot of the people who were in your class also were contributing to the first couple of volumes of the series here.
Yeah.
Was that the first project that you did out of school?
So I was the third comic Kickstarter, and that was for a collection of my webcomic Sorcery 101. And as I started to go to conventions, I realized like I need a new book every year, but I don't have time to put out a book every year. So then I organized Cautionary Fables and Fairy Tales. Because my contribution to NIXIE the Mill Pond Bisclarvet, I did that as like a mini comic first, and then talking to Kate and some other folks, I realized they all kind of are like, I keep meaning to adapt a fairy tale. And so I used the NIXIE in the Mill Pond was the first one that Kate and I worked on, where I was just like, well, then let's just do it.
Neat. It's interesting that the first one that you worked on is in the third book and not in the first book.
It's if you go by when we kickstarted them, because they were kickstarted first, and then Iron Circus picked them up to keep them in print. NIXIE is actually the oldest, but we did 2 print runs of NIXIE. So when talking to Spike at Iron Circus, Africa was almost out and Asia was almost out, so that's why she reprinted those ones first.
I see. Okay. That's very cool. When you kickstarted these books originally, this is always a thing that fascinates me. How many copies were you doing outside of what you were fulfilling?
So the first print run of each book is 2,500. 2,000 get printed here in the US and 500 get printed in the UK. Because shipping is so international shipping so out of control in the US. Basically, if someone orders the book from outside the US on our Kickstarter, they would get a book from Kate, and I would fulfill all the US orders.
Yeah. And so how many copies over and above what you needed to fulfill were there, would you say? Roughly.
I think
2,000 probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about 2,000 probably.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, I I think like each Kickstarter got about maybe 800 backers.
Okay, yeah.
And
So
then
yeah.
so maybe like half of the run was spoken for.
Mm.
Nice, because I do often see a lot of people who are kickstarting books, and it looks to me like they print almost none over.
Oh no, I can't do
And
that.
for me, the point of kickstarting is always to kickstart it so that it goes
Yeah.
further along in the
Yeah.
marketplace.
Yeah, full agreement. I mean, whenever I kickstart my own series, I always get a fair few hundred over the amounts, so that I've got them to continue to sell and raise the profile of the books, and then hopefully fund the next one.
Yeah, like I
sense,
said,
really.
I wanted a new book for every year, so the point is to take them to shows, and
yeah.
Well, and ultimately you hope to be able to get them into stores as well.
That was when partnering with Iron Circus came in, because
Yeah.
originally it was just for us at conventions. So
yeah. So can you talk a little bit about Iron Circus and Spike getting involved?
So both of us have been pretty good friends with Spike for a long time. Like I said that I met Kate in 2006, and we probably met Spike around that time too, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Back in our old chat room days.
IRC.
Yeah. And so as Iron Circus was looking for more titles, Spike told me that she specifically needed some kid-friendly books, and at the time I was like, well, Africa's almost out of print, and Asia will soon follow, so do these interest you? And so she flipped through them, and then we worked out a deal.
And obviously her distribution's so much better than we can do from just posting out things from our own homes. So as you say, we can get it into shops, and from there they can get into more hands, and that's really cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially the kid-friendly book, because kids don't really browse online a lot. So.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever I'd sell them at conventions, kids would be like, "Whoa, what's this?" And they don't immediately run over and flip through and like the covers and everything. But that's it's only in a convention setting, so it's really, really great to be able to get them out in a much wider way.
Yeah, so I imagine that most of the people supporting the Kickstarters are obviously adults. Even though it's a kid-oriented book. Is that I don't know, is that difficult to make the Kickstarter work, or did it get funded right away? Or
well, that's where it being an anthology helps, because since there's like a bunch of people, the way we kickstarted it was people got a page rate, but then they would get a higher page rate if the Kickstarter did better. So that was sort of incentive for folks to promote the Kickstarter, and kind of by each contributor's forces combined, it got funded.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. I'm assuming that now that it's being published by Iron Circus, that once the new printing costs and stuff are taken care of, that people will be getting royalties in addition. Yeah, nice. Always great when independent comics works the way it's supposed to.
I know, right?
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's really exciting. How about this? When you put together an anthology, what's the process like?
So we usually come up with a list of like 50 people and send out invites, expecting to get a no or no answer from half of them. And so then like 25 people left, and then we expect a few of them to drop out. So we usually end up between 15 and 20 people per book. So
okay. Are you just telling them what do you want to do for it, or are you trying to assign out stories? Because I could see, for example, 6 people going, "Oh, I'll do Pinocchio," or whatever?
Well, so we don't assign the stories. We tell people like, please pick a story by this time, but if you pick it faster, you get dibs on that story.
Yep.
So in the case of 5 people want to adapt Pinocchio, it's, well, which one of them responded to our email first?
Very good.
It's a very scientific method.
Yeah. How hard is it to? I got a bug in here. What are you doing?
Oh no.
Sorry, it's not invisible fairies. How hard is it to organize and sort of keep an anthology project on track?
A lot of emails to people, bothering them. Yeah,
you can get the herding cats experience sometimes. Just a lot of as Kel says, lots of email reminders and just sort of gentle poking and going, hey, remember this?
And that's where expecting some people to drop out comes in handy, because like if someone disappears or just completely blows every deadline we give them, it's the book is still got enough people in it. So
it's understandable though, because sometimes people, life happens and things happen, and a deadline can't be met, but that's usually okay, because we tend to have other people we can call on to fill the gaps, and the books happen.
Yeah. I'm assuming that people only get paid the page rate once they've completed the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone drops out, they don't end up getting paid for that.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure that I understand how things work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we pay people after the Kickstarter, because that's when we actually can. And also where the bonuses for overfunding the Kickstarter come in as well, because we use the Iron Circus model of page rate bonuses for when things overfund. We don't really do anything extra with those funds apart from make sure people get paid better, which I think is the best possible thing you can do with them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you is there a hard? I mean, so you invite 25 people. You think 15 of them are going to participate. Is there a hard limit on how many pages the book's going to be, or a minimum of how many pages you need it to be? Like, what's sort of the parameters of that? Because it seems like an anthology you could get,
any size, really.
Pages all of a sudden.
We try to shoot for at least 150 pages, and try not to go over 300. We tell everyone that we're inviting that their story needs to be maximum 20 pages long. It used to be 30, so we started to get more people that actually fulfilled what we asked them. We started to say, okay, the stories need to be shorter, since people are starting to be, they're responding to our email. Basically, as the series got bigger, it was easier to get people to answer our emails. So,
but yeah, I think there's a good range of sort of story length throughout all the books, really. I think we've got ones, as you say, ranging from 4 pages to almost 30, and that's kind of cool, actually. I really like that in an anthology, is to you can get a little snippet of a story or get really a bit deeper with one. And that's what makes anthologies really cool, is that variety.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. NIXIE is European fairy tales, which tends to be what the American and UK audiences are familiar with. You also have one that's African. I saw that the new one is going to be Oceania. Is it more difficult? There you go. Is it more difficult to get people to participate in doing stories that aren't a culture that they're necessarily familiar with? And sort of the follow-up to that is, are you providing sources for any of these stories?
So for Africa and Asia, we provided some sources. But for Oceania, and we're also working on North America, we only invited people of that cultural background. So
Interesting.
they know their own stories, so we don't have to provide research.
Sure.
I think it ends up with a much more interesting and unique book as well as a result.
What kind of research were you providing for the Africa and Asian ones?
I sent people a few links for the Africa one that were just collections of African folklore.
There's a lot of it out there.
And same with the Asia one. I provided a few links, but that one more people had an idea of what they wanted to do already.
Sure, absolutely. Looks like we have an audience question, which we'll pull up here. And if anybody else who's watching has a question, please feel free to put them in and we'll get to them. It's Ducky. I like that's a great username. How did you gather all the different illustrators for the different styles in each story? Also, which story is your favorite and why? Don't make them favorites. But, okay, go ahead.
So I said that NIXIE was the first one, and because it was an experiment, we didn't know we were going to have the money. Like we didn't even know if the Kickstarter was going to be successful. Most of the people in NIXIE were people I was talking to almost every day at that time, so they knew I wasn't going to like disappear and dodge their emails if things didn't get funded. And then kind of used NIXIE after it was kickstarted to use it as proof of concept to get more people on board. And like I said, so in the Africa one, there's several people in there that they're folks I went to school with. So I was already familiar with their work, but then there were a few people that I just asked because I liked their art and kind of used, hey, we did this for one book, so we're not idiots that are gonna fumble everything. And then repeated that process with like the third book, which was Asia. And like I said, as like the series got bigger, we started to get more people responding to our cold call emails. So
yeah, I think my favorite though in this one in particular is Katie Shanahan's Tatterhood, which is just, it's so fun. It's such gorgeous, very energetic drawings and a really, really lovely tale about two extremely different sisters. And it was one I hadn't heard of before as well. So it was really, really cool to, find a new story.
And I also really like Jose's Pied Piper story,
that's
which
so
is the last
good.
one.
Very sinister.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Carla Speed McNeil story myself.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah,
I love Baba Yaga. Yeah,
nice and short.
You
kind
can't
of
go wrong with it.
interesting how sometimes the shorter ones are almost more involving than the longer ones.
Well, they've got to get to the point quicker, don't they?
Yeah. No, that's great. Are there any other requirements that you ask of the people who are participating?
So like I said, we make deadlines. We tell them it can't go over 20 pages, has to be at least 2 pages. And we do tell them that it needs to be kid friendly. So we've sent some notes to people that are like, you need to change this because it's getting too violent or too sexy.
That's fairy tales for you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask that as well, that a lot of the original sources are actually really kind of scary and terrifying when you read them.
But that's kind of cool, though, in a way. I mean, I think that's why kids actually really like fairy tales, is because they are a bit spooky.
Yeah.
I mean, there's werewolves in yours in this book, after all, Kel.
Yes.
Werewolf
My werewolf
violence.
story, yeah. Werewolf eats a lady's nose.
He really does.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes,
no,
they're
very much
reading that as a kid. Reading that as a kid, I would just be like, "Oh, that's so cool!" So
I found out while drawing it because the reason why he bites off her nose in particular is because apparently at the time the story was written, that was the punishment for adultery.
oh wow!
And it's all about how his wife got him stuck as a wolf so she could run off with another man. So
yeah.
weird. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
When you're assembling the final package, you've got the stories in from different people. How do you determine like which story comes first, which one comes last?
They're sort of arranged from goofiest to more serious.
Oh, okay.
So like, and that's so like if you get it for a kid who's maybe slightly too young, they could read the first few stories and you get to one that they're scared of, and then you could come back and pick up at that point. So
yeah. The stories you guys picked, did you, because you're the editors, does that mean that you got first crack at whatever story you wanted, or did you wait to see what people were doing before you decided what stories you wanted to do?
Well, like I said, I was already drawing Bisclarvet as a mini before the book even started. So
that's extra dibs, really.
Yeah.
Double strength dibs.
But for all the others, I kind of waited to see what other people were doing.
Yeah. And you, Kate, because it seems like Puss in Boots would be one of those stories that maybe a lot of people would want to.
Yeah. I think every volume we've done so far has a trickster story, and Puss in Boots is definitely one of those. So I might have dibsed it a little bit, not gonna lie, partially because it was a good excuse to try drawing my cats, and that was a lot of fun to do. Like I say, everyone wants to do the trickster story, and that's the time I got to do that.
Nice. So let's talk maybe a little bit about craft individually. Are you guys drawing pen and paper? Are you drawing digitally? Like, how do you guys individually work?
I pencil digitally, print it out, ink traditionally, and then color digitally again.
Interesting. Oh, that's super interesting. What? Why do you do it that way? Out of curiosity.
That is what's the fastest. So like when penciling, that's when you want to move stuff around and maybe like change the size of stuff. So it helps to be able to lasso tool this figure, scale them up, or move them to a different part of the page. But then for inking, I still ink traditionally. One, because I find it relaxing, but also if I ink digitally, I get caught up in the like undo, redo this line, undo, redo this line, undo.
Yeah.
And so doing traditionally, there's no undo button, so it forces me to commit to stuff.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I was talking the last interview I did for the Adult Club. We just talked to Adrian Tomina, and he was talking about how he really recommends to artists that they don't do digital only so that they eventually have original artwork that they can sell. That may not necessarily be something that you're bringing in a lot of money today, but 30 years later in your career, that might actually be a big windfall for you. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I know I still have a few pages hanging around from a few things because I used to work traditionally as well. I'm full digital now, though, personally, because it's quicker for me. Yeah. But no, I did used to sell original pages, and you do as well, don't you, Kel?
I do, but people don't usually buy them.
Yeah.
So on my website, I actually have an original art lottery where if someone gives me $30, I'll send them a random page. Like,
Oh,
and that's
cool.
because usually if people do buy them, they want a like specific flashy one.
Mm.
But Sorcery 101 is 12 years old now, and a lot of those pages are people talking and talking some
Mm.
more, and they aren't really exciting things that people necessarily want to put on their wall. So the lottery is just like, I'll just give you a random Sorcery 101 page.
I'm kind of hoping, since we work largely creator owned, the sort of later windfall will be from reprints of books that we sell ourselves. That's certainly my plan anyway. Fingers crossed. Anyway.
Sure. I'll cross those fingers as well. Yeah, I think one of the things we were talking about is just having multiple revenue streams, right? So that you not only have the book, but you also have the original artwork.
Oh yeah.
In the case of Adrian, we were talking about serialization as well. And then there's a hardcover, and then there's a soft cover, and then there's a deluxe book at some point, and all of those different revenue streams make it easier to make a living as a cartoonist.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's not an easy row to hoe necessarily.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The things like Kickstarter and Patreon and such have made it much more
easier,
possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's see. Now, Kel, is your lettering here? Is it hand lettering or is it a font?
I hand letter. That's my handwriting.
Yeah. Very nice. What's your feeling, your reasoning on doing that versus doing a font?
Well, I'm dyslexic, and it's easier for me to read hand lettering. I didn't realize that was why I was more drawn to it, but apparently there are studies that the more uniform a font is, the harder it is for someone who's dyslexic to read it. And so the like slight imperfections and changes in each letter as they repeat make it easier. Also, I like to letter and pencil at the same time, so I know where the word balloons are all going to go. So I actually, like, while laying out a page, will do all the lettering, and this where digital penciling comes in handy, because then I can just move the word balloon around and put it where it needs to go while penciling.
So then you're digitally hand lettering?
Yeah.
Okay. Neat.
But then
That's
I
cool.
like still ink the lettering traditionally because it all gets printed as like blue line. So
yeah. Oh, so you're essentially lettering it twice then?
Yeah. I can actually share an in progress page. Hold on.
Oh, that would be great. Always love to see process. It's the thing I love kind of the most about comics is, we're into, I don't know, 180 interviews with cartoonists I've done at this point. And everybody works differently. Everybody works differently. I don't think I've ever gotten the same answer twice. I see. That's cool.
So yeah, so this is like a digital page. So this will all get printed. When I'm done penciling it, it will all get printed as blue line, and then I can ink on top of it. So
yeah, but I can see that the lettering is very dark and black there. So you'll print that out as a blue line and then just
so final penciling, there will be like, this is a rough layout, and the final penciling will still be like black pencil while I'm digitally doing it, and then it all gets turned into blue. So
Kate, you're using a font here. It appears to me. Is this a font based on your handwriting at all? No.
No, that one is that's a Blambot font, I believe, which I always use for my webcomics because they're just custom-made comic fonts.
Yeah.
Which are just they're perfect for comics. They look just the part really, and I find my wrist cramps up if I try hand lettering too much. So I just go with the slightly, I'd say, quicker version. But for my webcomic, I do 2 pages a week, so you do have to take a little bit of speed into account sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And what's your process like? Are you when are you doing the lettering?
Yeah, I like Kel. I put it in when I'm penciling. It's I do everything in Clip Studio it's called now. At the moment, I do everything in digitally. So I'll do a little thumbnail for a vague idea of composition of how big each panel should be and where the speech bubbles should go. Who's standing where, who's running over where, and then just pencil over the top of that, all on Clip Studio with my my nice big tablet monitor, and then ink over the top of that and color underneath, and kind of try to. As Kel says, if you try to put the speech bubbles and the lettering in place sort of as soon as possible, you don't end up covering up a load of your hard work, which I see happen quite often. It's always a bit of a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do either of you, sort of do layouts like in a notebook or something, or do you just go straight to the digital? To do your sort of your roughs and things like that?
I do thumbnails that look like this.
Oh, very nice.
So
very nice. Kate?
Yeah, my thumbnails are all digital. I've got some on here. I don't know if they'll show up.
You do the little screen share button at the bottom.
Down at the bottom.
There we go.
Do the thumbnails with like a ballpoint pen so I don't erase while thumbnailing. Yeah,
I don't know if those are showing up, but that's a couple of my thumbnails. They're just very, very scribbly. I don't think they're even readable by anyone who isn't me, most likely.
Sure.
They
No, that's very
look
common.
like
that's very
bizarre.
common.
Yeah, hieroglyphics essentially. But that's the way I do mine. Is I just do it all digitally now. I don't know why, but I've sort of grown to really like it. But I do, when I'm making notes for writing, that all goes in a physical notebook. Couldn't tell you the difference, really.
Yeah, well, it's whatever works for you. I mean, that's like, as I say, this is the great thing about comics is that there's no true way to do it. You do it however it works, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
I support that a lot. It looks like we've got a question. Jordan says, Podrigo, hey man, how are you? Good to see you again. Do you work individually for these books, or do you ever get together to discuss work in progress? Well, you're on different continents, right? So
yeah. So for organizing the anthology, someone will send us their artwork or their script or whatever. Kate and I will read it individually and then have a private conversation and then send them the artists that we're editing notes. So that way they don't get like me saying one thing and Kate saying another thing. Like we talk about what we want tweaked or edited, and then send one email together. So
apart from the editing that we do, the artists largely work on their own for their stories, and then they just if they've got a question or they need a hand with anything, we're there to help. But for the most part, I'd say it's reasonably a solo effort on most people's parts, apart from the bits we do, the actual editing.
Yeah, how extensive is the editing process? Like how how many notes do you think you're giving to an average story?
Probably not that many, really.
We don't. Yeah, we usually mostly are looking for stuff that's kid friendly or not. And yeah, so we don't give a whole lot of notes. We mostly, because they're fairy tales, so like the story structure like doesn't usually need a lot of help because it's already an established story that the artist is working from, and yeah, so
I'd say for the most part as well, we have a lot of very, reasonable levels of experience, but mostly experienced comic artists working on these. So for the most part, they tend to be pretty good about what they're doing on their own. It's pretty rare we need to really advise too much, which is useful for us.
Absolutely. Has anyone ever turned in something that was just like, no, there's just not a way?
Not yet. So,
well, that was very hopeful. Not yet.
Because as I say, some fairy tales are quite.
So usually they tell us what fairy tale they want to do, and I just ask them, okay, how are you making this kid friendly? If it's something that's inappropriate, like in the Oceania one, someone pitched a story that involved genitalia, and I was like, we're not opposed to you doing this story, but how are you making it a kid friendly version of the story? And either they have an answer, or in the case of the person who proposed a story involving genitalia, they're like, oh, I forgot it has to be kid friendly. I'll pick it.
I think we've had to get people to edit bikinis and such onto people as well, because unfortunately, while it's culturally appropriate to have somebody topless, might not great for the distributors. So
yeah, that was the main difference between the Iron Circus version and our original Kickstarter version is in like the Africa one and eventually in the Oceania one, like it is culturally accurate for these women to be topless, but when getting it like ready for Iron Circus to put it out, like that did have to be edited because it's going into libraries and stuff. So
yeah, and so and when you're thinking about kid friendly, are you thinking about the most restrictive cultures idea of what kid friendliness is?
The distributor gave us rules, like they are not allowed to market as kid friendly if it includes blank, 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 and blank. So,
so I guess the restrictive culture in this case is actually the US.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it often is. We are unfortunately a puritanical a culture. It's kind of crazy, actually. But certainly, in France, they would have a very different idea of what's acceptable than in the US. So
yeah, so also like we got a note back like choking is no go. So there was in the Oceania one, there's an animal that gets trapped in a trap, and the artist drew a snare that chokes the animal, and that was a note that we got that like can it like catch their foot, not their neck? So stuff like that.
That one surprised me that the werewolf nose biting was okay, but
I think it has to do with what a kid could repeat on their own.
Yeah, I guess they can't actually bite. Yeah, well, I hope anyway.
Yeah, so like, so choking is a thing that a kid could theoretically do in their backyard, and so don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that one at home.
Do you guys have kids around you, be it a sibling or a cousin or something that you're bouncing ideas off of, or are you just
no, there are no kids in my life.
Yourself?
I've got a couple of nephews, but they're like 3 and 2. So if you ask them about comics, they're just like, Spider-Man! I love Spider-Man! And you can't really, they will tell you a magnificent story about the Hulk punching the Joker or something, but they're not great for for ideas about things, about more intricate things at the moment. When they get a bit older, though, I cannot wait to give them these books.
Nice.
Yeah. Whereas there's no kids in my daily life, so.
So how do you figure out what is kid appropriate or what isn't, or what would interest a kid?
I just do what would I want to read as a kid.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I thought it was an interesting question to ask.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, really. It would be like, if I was a kid going through the library looking for something neat to read, what would I want? And what book would I have wanted to find when I was, 8 or so?
Yeah, no, very much so. When it comes to, say, the African or the Asian books, were you considering that might be the first example of those cultures that some of these kids may be seeing in their day-to-day lives?
Yeah, that when people are like looking at all the cautionary fable books, and they don't know which one to grab, I usually tell them like, Europe's going to have the most stories you already know. Africa's going to have the most stories you don't know. Asia is, I think, the most pages per dollar. So if they just want like the most comics for their dollar, they should go with Asia. And yeah, so.
It has been pretty cool, actually, because when people flip through them, they are kind of like, oh, I didn't know any African ones, and they will start flipping through and just be like, oh. I always point out the first one about a girl who married a skull, because it is absolutely magnificent. And you can see people going like, oh, I haven't actually read anything from this region before, so it wasn't actually a thing I thought about when we were making them, but it is pretty cool that it's getting stuff out there in a different direction.
Yeah. All right, so I was partially asking, are you hearing from kids specifically that, this is fantastic, that this is the first time I've seen someone who looks like me in a story?
I'm mostly hearing from parents like
okay.
that the kid couldn't put it down or something. So not from the kid directly.
Okay.
Yeah, because we sell at cons specifically, mostly at the moment, but things will change with Iron Circus. But it means you don't really get an awful lot of like direct kid feedback, which is a real shame, because I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can say that here in the store individually, we certainly have heard from kids and from their parents saying exactly that it was great to see the representation.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. Just so so that it's out there.
That was part of the intention, and then also like that's why we then moved to, for the newer ones, it's going to also feature artists who are from that culture to even give the kids even more representation. So not just on the page, but behind it. So
ultimately, is the idea that you're going to have one for each continent, each region?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 7 books at the end, is that the?
Well, people don't live in Antarctica, so 6 at the end.
There could be a book that's more stories. I don't know.
Extremely snow-based stories.
Stories about penguins.
Yeah.
That's cool. Are there other projects like this that you would want to do, or when you get through the 6 books, is that what you see at the end of Anthology?
So we're talking to Spike now and Iron Circus about, when these are done, doing shorter ones that are in color and like are a deeper cut, because some regions, due to like what people are interested in, they get a little bit ignored because we were doing such a broad look. So like right now we're planning the North America one. It's mostly going to be Native American folklore. But there aren't a whole lot of Mexican stories in there or Puerto Rican stories in there. And then Russia kind of gets ignored in the Europe one. So we're kind of going to try to do ones that are smaller in color, but just focusing on like, okay, so here's one that is just Russia. Here's one that is, so just like doing a deeper dive into a specific region.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah. Very hard to boil all of Asia down to 250
in particular,
pages.
Asia in particular, that it's a wide lens, and a lot of people, if they know any, probably only know China or Japan, and so.
Yeah. And when you're just because I'm curious, when the Oceania book, is that like New Zealand, Australia, or are you also including like Hawaiian in there?
Hawaiian's in there, the Philippines are in there.
Pacific Islands mostly.
Yeah, so it's kind of like any Pacific Islands, like New Zealand's in there. Australia could be in there, but their native cultures are not supposed to share their folklore. So
interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
So that is like they could if they wanted to, but it goes against what they're supposed to do. So
Understood. You see, you learn something new every day. This is I love learning.
And then with the North America one, a lot of those folk tales are sort of owned by the specific tribe they come from. So where the contributors have to like get permission from their tribal leader to share the story is one of the steps in the North America one.
Okay. Interesting.
Which is it's a very interesting sort of cultural thing that I know I wasn't aware of a few years out from the project. So
and we have guest editors for the Oceania one and the North America one, and we just sent out invites for the South America one, and that also has a guest editor. So we'll probably continue to use a guest editor for each book.
Who's from the region and can inform us of any possible stumbling blocks like that. So good to be informed, as you say.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Does the North America one also include, I guess, what we would call tall tales?
No.
Okay.
I was just like that they can find those elsewhere more easily. So, and it would also seem weird to have them right next to a bunch of Native American folklore. So
agreed. Absolutely. Yeah. Just thinking out loud. Out loud.
Yeah.
What do you guys like about working in anthologies? And then the flip of that, what do you find frustrating about working with anthologies?
Frustrating part is when people don't answer their emails.
That's fair.
And the exciting part is like seeing what everyone does.
Yeah, having it all come together as a cool collection at the end, and actually seeing this neat patchwork sort of tugged together as a full thing. It's rad.
Yeah. Are you so I'm imagining that people are giving you a near final version, right? You're not seeing the pencil stage separately. Yeah.
We are now. Yeah.
Okay.
So we give them like, this is when the pencils are due, this is when the inks are due, this is when the script is due, because it's better to catch stuff before they're really far along.
Yeah. So somebody isn't all the way through it, and then you're kind of like, not so sure about that aspect of it, and they're like, I've done all the inking though. It also keeps people on track a lot more, as you say, actually having to answer their emails if you keep setting deadlines. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of chivying people along, but it always results in a really cool final product. So.
Mm-hmm. As working cartoonists, how do you guys approach the page turn?
Ooh.
So I was the one who put all the books together, and I tried to make sure that what looks like is supposed to be a page turn ends up on a page turn. But that is sometimes tricky because not everyone uses an even number for their story. And personally, when I do thumbnails, I just know the page turn's always going to be on the even number. So I kind of plan for it that way.
I'm garbage at that. I'm awful at it. I'm so used to webcomics. I'm used to a page turn being every page. So it's just click, click, click through. So I'm pretty much always just like, yeah, something happens on a page. I'm used to sort of doling things out in that regard. So so not great, I guess.
So in terms of webcomics, because you're right, it is not a literal
different
page turn. Do you still feel like there needs to be a beat in the last panel of each page? Yeah.
For me, the way I organize a page is that either a joke or a bit of plot has to come across in each page. There has to have been a reason to have read that one particular page. And that's what works for me, because I'm not telling a very decompressed story. I do a sort of action adventure, plot driven kind of romp type thing. So it moves along at a fair old clip. So for me, yeah, every page has to have something happen on it, whether it's in the last panel or partway through. I have a very definite idea for each page. So yeah, I guess yeah, it pretty much is a page turn, I guess.
yeah, in its own manner of speaking, absolutely.
Digital page turn.
We're out of questions. Yeah, we got one more. Okay, one more question. Where to go? From KH. In the story The Wishing Bone, were the main characters in the story originally rabbits? Sorry, the singing Bon.
No. Casey Green decided to make them rabbits, so that way the violence looks cartoonier. Also, I believe the rabbits popped up in his webcomic at the time, Gun Show. And so it was a way to maybe get people who were reading his webcomic to pick up the fairy tale books. So it was hey, you like to see these rabbits do goofy goofs, and now they're goofy goofing in a fairy tale. So,
and also he just draws a good rabbit. So
yeah, no, because if these had not been little cartoon rabbits, that would actually be pretty gory and horrible.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that one is like,
yeah.
Yeah, the Looney Tunes effect going on there, I think.
Okay. Well, let me wrap it up with this question. If you were going, because we get a lot of people who watch these who want to make their own comics. So if you had to give a single piece of advice to someone who wants to do comics but hasn't quite gone and done it yet, what might that be?
Webcomics are free to post online, so that's an easy way to get your name out there.
For sure.
That is extremely true. I'd also say start doing something small. Just do something that's a couple of pages and see how you like it, and then you get that satisfaction of having finished something, and then you discover like, oh, this is actually really good. I do like this, and that's kind of how you get hooked.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you two for coming and joining us today. I thought NIXIE was a fun book. We've heard a lot of positive from the kids. And it's there are multiple books in the series, and here there's the girl carrying the skull right in my
other side.
Reversed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
That wasn't planned either. That was actually sitting there. So, and there's going to be 3 more books in the series too, which is a fantastic thing to do. So look forward to those. I want to thank Kel McDonald and Kate Ashwin for coming and joining us today and talking about this and talking about anthologies and how they're made and this process of putting it together, because I think a lot of this stuff is kind of mysterious to a lot of people. And so it's always great to hear that. And so thank you very much for taking the time and being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely.
It was lovely to be here.
Absolutely. I also would like to thank my crew. I would like to thank Jordan for doing all the tech support and doing the show, shooting it. I would love to thank my staff for being wonderful and lovely. I want to thank The Beat for being our sponsor, which will help us get out there more. If the book sounds interesting to you, certainly we can sell it to you, but you can buy many other places. But every single month we pick a book like this that's as good as this. So you can certainly join our club at graphicnovelclub.com/kids. That's the only plug I'm going to give. Next month's book is Shirley and Jamila Save Their Summer by Gillian. I actually don't know how you pronounce her last name. Gorez, I think. But we'll find that out next month. This is a fun book, and I think you're going to like this a lot. So that's next month. We will be back. But this was this month's book. And again, thanks everybody for participating, and we will see you next month.